Good morning. I'm hoping this has gone up live, so I'm just going to double check on my phone, make sure it is working, and hopefully sounds all right. But obviously, we're getting a lot closer now until the Cheltenham Festival. Um, Countdown on there says 178 days. I got it marked as 184, so maybe I'm recording this in the future. But anywho, I did a piece before where I asked you guys to vote on your selections for particular races at the festival. Now, I appreciate some of the races are so far off and very difficult to pinpoint a horse this far out. So, you know, it sort of is what it is, isn't it? You can only go so far with it. But I do think that it's worthwhile me letting you guys know how I'm seeing things, and then essentially, you know, give my opinion of where I stand with it. So it's fairly open and apparent before the season kicks off where my thoughts are. You can probably sense how confident I am on certain horses and less so on others. So we'll just kick off in the usual fashion. We'll just go off with the Supreme first. So I'm just going to double check that. Oh, yeah, I think we have got sound on there. Beautiful. Right. So, yeah, we'll kick off with the Supreme. So, I'm not going to reiterate what happened in the previous video. I'll stick a link up when I put this onto YouTube to give you a link to go and look at that one. But ultimately, it's best to start off with the Supreme, isn't it? Now, this is the time of year when horses to follow lists will come out. There'll be bits from Paul Ferguson's jumpers to follow, trainer comments, jockeys, stable bits that come out. So you start to get a bit of a vibe of where horses might be going, and you get a bit of a vibe of where people are eyeing up potential targets. So Supreme, typically, you get a champion bumper winner, is bound to be near the forefront of it. Fernie Hollow's a really, really nice horse. I mean, the fact that he ballsed up in those first couple of runs, um, it showed he had an engine, and then the fact that they got the win in before Cheltenham, then he went and did the goods at Cheltenham. That's really, really positive because obviously he's turned a corner. It's exciting for next season. Now, I think this horse is very smart. Ballymore Supreme could potentially be ones for it, but we know with Cheveley Park they've got a number of horses in this division. So Malone Road missing the season last year through an injury, has come back and had that hurdle run. I mean, any horse that's got a knee, it was a knock, I think, in the stable that caused it, apparently a knock anyway, and then he knocked it again. I'm just always a bit cautious of horses that are potentially fragile. So, no disrespect to Malone Road, but you'd think that he could come here. Supreme looks like the sort of target for him, although he will be a year more mature, so we'll see how things pan out. But I'm just thinking that they're not going to be fussed about Malone Road being sort of the priority to take over a race. In that, I mean, he'll probably run him in the Supreme, and they will definitely run something else with him, as opposed to other races where we're thinking they might want to split him up. Anywho, I think Malone Road will come here. As I say, we'll see how the season goes. It might turn out he's not even that great anyway, but he still looks like he's a beast. Fernie Hollow, I'm still undecided and a bit torn where he's going to go, but the comments that are coming out are suggesting that Ballyadam for Cheveley Park is going to be the two miler. And obviously the market doesn't necessarily reflect that, but Ballyadam was a lot bigger towards the beginning of the season. Now he flopped in a bumper, won really nicely after. Of course, you can forgive a horse a run, like I said with Fernie Hollow, but Fernie Hollow showed a little bit more in his two bumper defeats than Ballyadam did for me, so that's where we are with that. There'll be talk now coming out about micromanage. We had it last year for the Triumph. People were talking about it. Someone messaged me earlier. It's nice to have people to talk to about the Antepost stuff because you can give people a view on things that they might catch that I might not have seen. So there was a mention. I think there might be some comments coming out about that horse. Schooled him really well, all that sort of stuff. Flinter Sacra, obviously I think he's full brother to Sprinter Sacra, if not half. Was beaten by Your Darling, but that's probably going to work out as good form, I think. And then he went and hacked up in his own bumper after. So, they're the sorts of horses you can see in the market. You don't need me to tell you those sorts of things. Now, the one thing you probably don't need me to tell you this, it's a horse like Appreciate It. I cannot see how this horse would run in a Supreme. So, cue me playing this in 6 months' time when Appreciate It hacks up in the Supreme. But he just looks like an out and out stayer. So, given the price that he is in here, he'd be one I wouldn't want to be talking too much about, to be fair. There's a few other nice horses in here. Bob Ollinger's going to be a big talking horse for lots of people. I'm not 100% sold on Bob Ollinger just yet. I want to see a little bit more. Obviously, you want to see him go over hurdles. It's not quite like with an Envoy Land last season and a Sam Crow the year before, where you just know this horse is going to be top graded. Bob Ollinger looks like he's got loads of potential, but as I say, I'm just not 100% sold yet. But he's a name you'll see banged about quite a lot. And then we're getting down a little bit further where there are still some really nice horses. Getting the queue for Harry Fry, obviously missed the season last year. Similar sort of thing as Malone Road there. we get quite a lot further down, and then there'll be certain horses, bumper horses. Eric Bloodaxe at one point was obviously really fancied for the champion bumper. Israel Champ probably wants to go a bit further. Your Darling, that I mentioned, that beat him Finita Sacre, is another one that probably wants to go a little bit further. Look at Blackbow. Still hasn't won a hurdle race, has he, in the time, so he's still retained his novice status. It's absurd, really. But we're getting a bit to the point now where we're going further down that we're looking at horses that are not going to be winning a Supreme. So really, it's the obvious ones that we can see within the list here where the thought process should be with. There will be some new recruits that are purchased that will come across, something like a Classical Dream a couple of years ago where they come in, we don't really know too much about them. A lot of people wouldn't even know that he was in Mullins Yard. Then they go and do what they do in those graded companies. So what am I saying, really? I'm saying that at this point with the Supreme, anyone that's got a ticket on Ballyadam, then happy days, because that seems to be the hype horse for the year. The main thing with the Antepost punting is you really, really do have to take advantage of Bet365 if you've got an account. If not, just ask a friend or something to get you one, because the cash out that they offer is obscene. It's 95% of your stake. Something like, I should say, Ballyadam, when he runs on debuts, a 20-1 poke, even if he got beat, he's not going to go out much bigger. I mean, not many bookies are going to want to take on a horse after off the back of one bad run. But if he did drift out a little bit, you might get 80% of your cash out back. So if you had a score on, you're still going to be able to get a reasonable amount of your stake back if you watch a horse run and it gets beat and it's crap. Or, for the same token, you could have a bet on it. The horse hacks up. Happy days. You've got Ballyadam in your Antepost portfolio at a big price. Now, it's not necessarily the way that everyone wants to play it, because obviously you're tying up your money for a part of the season. But again, with the cash out, unless they suspend it when there's any injury news or anything like that, you're going to get the benefit of the cash out throughout the season. Betfair offer a cash out, but they'll cap it at, I can't remember what it is. I think it's 20% of your stake is the maximum you can get. So I've backed horses at 50s that have been backed into sort of 4 or 5 to 1, and I'll still only get that extra amount. And then there's other bookmakers that are just not so good with the cash out. So it's worth bearing in mind. You might be able to get a bigger price with a Betfair Paddy Power, and if you're only looking at trying to get your stake back, it might work out. But Bet365 are head and shoulders above anybody else. So they're the sort of ones that you might be able to have a little bit of a play with. I do like my block bets. I will be doing some stuff with the novices there, but I wouldn't do it this far out. I mean, I might have a little bit of a look to see if there's any interest in there. But the sort of horses, again, that we talk about, your Fernie Hollow, your Ballyadam, probably both of those aren't going to come here. Flint Sacra should run well. They're all the obvious ones. They're all around about the right sort of places in the market. I'd be keen to just see how things progress as the season starts. But much easier race to go through, the Arkle. And this horse, Shishkin's a beast. It's obscene. When I did the Colossus preview, Richard Johnson was there. That was like an unreal moment for me, because being able to get an opportunity to sit and talk horses with Richard Johnson, obviously the stuff we did in front of the camera, but also off the camera as well, it was just fantastic to get his insight and stuff. Now, I didn't pay as much attention to it as I probably should have done. Already got a bit of a slip on Shishkin for the Supreme before he'd even fallen at Newbury, to be fair, and then I did back him a little bit after. Anywho, it was on him at a reasonable price. Richard Johnson said to me, I've never seen Nico talk about a horse like this other than when he talks about Altior. And I can't remember the exact quote, so I'm just sort of paraphrasing this a bit, I guess. But it sounded like he said to Richard Johnson in the weighing room, with like unprompted, not even asked, like, this horse is as good as Altior was at the time. Now, let's be real. Altior's a beast. We know that. That should have been a tip in itself for me, that those sort of things are coming out. I latched onto the Asterion Forlonge, knew that he jumped out to the right a little bit, and it's, there was enough in there that I'd already had some money on Shishkin. Let's not go over the top. But I'm not going to make the same mistake this season. Shishkin will absolutely hack up in the Arkle. Now, I know he hasn't jumped a fence. I know he fell at Newbury. Obviously, there's slight areas of concern, but he's the type of horse, beginning of the season, you get 4-1 about him. I agree, it's not a huge price because of the fact that he's got to make it to the festival. Any mistakes or anything like that, the price could potentially drift. But he's just the sort of horse I feel like you want to be getting stuck into, because by the time it comes through to the races at Sandown, I think it's the Henry VIII Novices Chase, he's going to be odds on by that point, I suspect. And honestly, I know it sounds like I'm exaggerating, but this horse is just going to, if he gets to the festival, he's just going to be so short that you won't be able to get him in any bets. You might stick him into Maccas or whatever. I just think get him on your team sheet. Now, there's got to be some value when there's a horse like this that's so short in the market. And given the fact that we've got a big build-up, anything can happen, and he's going to go off a short price, providing everything goes well, of course. There's going to be horses that are a bigger price in here that are going to have to go off second, third favourite. So I'll I love blowing my own trumpet, but the year that Footpad won the Arkle, it was a 4-runner race. Now, I didn't actually back St Calvados, but someone put me onto him when he was 40 to 1. I didn't do it, but I backed Footpad at 33s. I backed Petit Mouchoir at 40s. And Brain Power was the other one that ran was pants, but I had him at 50s. So I could have actually backed all four of these horses at 33s, 40s, 50s, 40s, and you've got a 4-runner race and you've got the market absolutely nailed. Now, Shishkin's the one that's going to win the Arkle. I would still be looking for something at a bigger price just to have a little bit of an interest in, because you got to play the value. You can have more than one horse Antepost. Again, admittedly, when Shishkin's short, you don't really want to be going too heavy into anything else. But let's just, for conversation's sake, you have £100 on Shishkin. You can afford to stick a couple of fivers on some horses at 20s. Again, just as a sort of a stake saver. But if we're going to look at those horses that could potentially be the ones in there, again, the vote that we did before, people are exactly on the right lines with it. Now, look, Envoy Elan is not coming for the Arkle, so it's absolutely pointless him even being in the market. Pretty similar to Appreciate It, although there's more chance of Appreciate It running the Supreme than there is Envoy running the Arkle, and an Appreciate It won't run in the Supreme. Envoy Elan, we'll come on to him a little bit later, so we'll just leave it there, but it's absurd. He's not even worth, with Bet365, the 14 to 1 you can get on offer, it's not even worth having him on your slip. I say that now, you'll get the cash out when Envoy Elan starts winning. If it does transpire that he goes to the Marsh, he's going to end up being shorter and shorter and shorter as the festival comes for something like an Arkle just by default. So, anyone that's like a real Envoy fan, I can see why they might play him. But anyway, I'm not going to be doing anything like that. Chancery House is definitely one that's on the short list. Probably looks like a Marsh type horse. Again, it's going to be a season like last year. I think a few horses swerved Envoy. I don't think that will happen so much this season, and I'm going to elaborate on that in a little bit. But Chancery House feels like he's in that sort of bracket. I think he'd appreciate the step up in trip, but I do like Arkle horses that stay. Stamina-laden horses do very well in Arkles. Captain Guinness was obviously a bit of a feel sorry for him story in the Supreme. I mean, I quite like him, but he's another one of those horses, like a Bob Oninger. I need to see more from him, to be honest. I would not be saying that this is an Arkle type. But then you look back at last season, would we have said put the kettle on was an Arkle type? I mean, I put it up as the lively outsider, but no, you wouldn't think at this point it's the sort of horse that's going to win it. I get the Supreme stuff. Don't get me wrong, I can see the angle and everything, but 16s, 20s, I don't know. Abacadabras is interesting, but I think the fact that he's going to stay over hurdles, go champion hurdle, probably makes you think, no point doing this. But again, if there's any news that comes out, let's just say Gordon Elliott says, yep, do you know what, we're actually going to go for crack over fences, he scored really well. You could probably want to pay attention to those sorts of news and then think, do you know what, I might just have a little Antepost on there. So you can build yourself a short list of horses that might not be going over those obstacles because they might actually revert and go over them. It's just this time of year, in it, when news and bits will come out. Anywho, Pic D'Orhy. Paul Nicholls has always raved about this horse. I like the horse. I'm definitely getting frustrated with him. I don't know if he's actually as good as we've all hyped him up to be, but we know that Paul Nicholls is the master of the slow burner. I mean, Clanders Obo took his time with him, rarely raced, to be honest, and he's turned into an absolute beast. Even Top of the Game has been steadily brought along the way he used to run in the handicap. I think it was the County Hurdley, travelled all over everything in races like that, and then the fact that he's progressed into a Gold Cup type. Just think with Pic D'Orhy, we're going to see the best of him when he goes over fences. That's a fact. Paul Nicholls can improve a horse. Paul Nicholls has already come out and said that this is a horse to really keep an eye on, and I really think that if you're talking about a horse that's sort of like a stable star, the Marsh and the Ryanair now have come up in prestige. They're not sort of a frowned upon race to go towards. But Pic D'Orhy must be, I think, first and foremost, looking at an Arkle. I think that's the way. And like I say, horses that stay do well in Arkle. So Pic D'Orhy would definitely be on the short list of a potential one that's in there. And then we're getting a little bit further down for other horses that, again, we're looking at the prices. There's quite a variance in there. These aren't horses that would be any surprise to anybody else to go on there, but they've all got those little bits about them that are a bit of a doubt. With a horse like Shishkin, I just don't think there is any doubt about him. I know he's got a jumper fence, all that. We've said that, but you get to like a Classical Dream. So good in the Supreme, but so poor last year. Like, how can you forgive him that? But again, he's 25 to 1 for an Arkle. It's a big enough price to make you think, maybe I should keep a bit of an eye on him. Now, you'll get horses like this as well, where he'll be entered up in a beginner's chase, and then you'll see that the target is going to be chasing. You'll see that the target's going to be a certain distance. And I know they could start at 2 miles and they could end up at the bloody National Hunt Chase with Willie Mullins, but you get a bit of a feel for it. You've also got the option with some of these bookmakers. William Hill are so slow with updating their prices. The year that Lorena won the mares, I can't remember the British one that was running at the same time. Anyway, there was a British one. that was really well fancied. And then there's Maria's Benefit maybe, and then there was Lorena. They both ran within like 10 minutes of each other on the TV. I managed to have another £100 on Lorena. I think it was tens, and she just hacked up in Ireland. I got that on mid race, and the same with Maria's Benefit. Just because I'd backed that to cover myself up, I managed to still get some more at a big price. So you can watch the ones at bigger prices running a novice chase, and just think to yourself, I'm just going to get him on the slip because I think it's the right way to play it. Look at Notebook last year. Lots of us were impressed with him early on, but then you just sort of think, is it quite Arkle winning performances? And then as time goes on and it looks better and better and better, you just think, oh, I wish I just had that fiver on at 25s or 50s. Like I say, do it with Bet365. I mean, price dependent. Classical Dreams a lot shorter here, so you'd have to factor that in a little bit. Whether you want the cash out, but if you back with Bet365 and you back something at 25s, 33s, and then it doesn't really pan out, you can just get most of your money back anyway. So don't be shy, is what I'm saying. Darva Star will be an interesting one. Obviously, an older horse now. That's enough for me to say that I don't particularly like him for it. Now, Sporting John's interesting. He was so good, and he's a couple of runs before he came to Cheltenham. He didn't really do it at Cheltenham. I don't know if there's much of an excuse from that, so we'll have to see how he gets on at the start of the season. But we were talking before about Chantry House. We've got Sporting John in here. There's going to be JP McManus horses spread all over the shop. I think Sporting John looked like a really, really powerful horse, so he'd be one that's interesting. Draconian's in here again. He was one as a long range one that I fancied last year. We didn't see him, so injury fraught horses you've got to be careful with. Silas Emery was one, wasn't he, that could have run, didn't get to the Arkle, and then you think he could be a champion chase horse, then they stick him in a champion hurdle. It's just absurd. Some of these horses, you just have to think, I'm not going to be able to pick it out right. There's other nice types that when we get a bit further down in here that potentially could be those sorts of horses. It depends what they do with a lot of them. It depends how they split them up. Fiddler on the Roof, I think I could forgive him the Supreme. 40s could be too big. We know that Tizard's pretty good with a chaser as well. But again, the point of going through this is we're trying to pinch out there might be a little bit of value somewhere. Fusel Raffles is going to be a better chaser. He was a big horse last year, probably too big for him for that season. But it all boils down to the fact that Shishkin's going to win. So I've elaborated on that, and I've talked too much about the Arkle because we could have just stopped at Shishkin, couldn't we? So Champion Hurdle, whoa, this is a market that I'm not even really that keen to be looking at, to be honest, just because you know that I wasn't massively keen on Epitant last year, and she won so nicely. But I still feel the initial thought was it was a crap Champion Hurdle, and I shouldn't really say that because I'm a massive advocate saying that it's the champion hurdle. You can't have a bad champion hurdle. But, hey, I wasn't really blown away with her. You just have to think, is there anything else that's going to come in? I don't really know. She could improve. Well, she's entitled to improve. She could be the one. I don't want to take 4-1 about it. I don't. I'd rather the Shishkin 4-1 looks more value to me than Epitant, a proven champion hurdle winner. It sounds balmy, doesn't it? But Goshen, I'm not sold on. And that sounds balmy because he would have won the Triumph. It's obscene, isn't it? So we'll just have to see how he goes for the season. But I'm just not sold on him. So the top two I'd be keen to take on. Abacadabras was good. I just really don't like Gigginstown 2-milers, and I could be shooting myself in the foot with that. And it is obviously a very general rule to put in there. But again, single figures wouldn't interest me. Then we've got Envoy Aladdin here as well. Standard. Shishkin, not going to happen, is it? Well, unless he has a bad season over fences. Honeysuckle, I think, will probably still stay with the mares just for the fact that Kenneth Alexander just buys mares. That's the sort of band that they're in. They're going to go chase with her the season after. I just feel like maybe it makes sense to just notch up a couple of mares wins, and then they might even reconsider whether they're going to go fences or not. But then you look at this and you think, could she have actually won the champion hurdle last year with the way that Epitant ran and the horses in behind sort of backing up her form? I don't know. I think she's better over 2.5, sort of almost at least. So I wouldn't think Honeysuckle's going to come here. St. Roy, he's the one that everyone's going to be talking about, much like a Ballyadam in the Supreme. And I think with good reason, to be fair. I really kick myself now for the season last year where I didn't get stuck into St. Roy. I mean, I had a very, very, very small saver on him for the race. I'm quite happy to back a handful in there. But before the season, before we saw this horse make his debut, I think he was sent off 4s on and got beat. I had a message from about 5 or 6 different people, and you get varying sources, but all these people said the same thing about this horse. And it must have obviously stemmed from one place, but they were all saying that they think this horse is an absolute beast. Now, they were talking Supreme at that time, and then obviously flopped. And then he sort of went under the radar a little bit because it was a low-key victory he got after. But the way that he hacked up at Cheltenham, it just took me back to those comments from the beginning of the season where people were saying this is a proper horse. They really, really like him. Um, and with that, it now makes me think: had he have run in the Supreme and won that, not saying he would have won a Supreme, but had he have done that, had things gone to plan last season, surely we'd be looking at him as a champion hurdle horse, given the fact that he hopefully won't be going over fences. Now, I don't know if that's been 100% confirmed, whether they're going to go chasing or not. We've talked about the JP horses already that could be Arquilis bound. I'd be interested to know what they do with this horse. He's definitely one that is the right way of thinking for a lot of people, but he does need to improve on what he did last season. But you'd think a horse like him, like I'm not even joking, I reckon he's got 20 plus pounds of improvement in him, which means that he's a proper horse and he's a proper contender for this. And again, it's Bet365, 20 to 1 top price. Lots of you will be on at 25s or bigger. Just back him, because when he goes and runs well in a race, you're going to do all right out of it. And if he doesn't run so well and he drifts out a little bit, then you can either cash a bit out or you can just see how it goes. But be interesting to see where they start him. It might be similar-ish to Classical Dream. And then obviously if he goes and hacks up first time out, you're talking a single figure priced horse. And if he didn't win first time out, it wouldn't bother me. He's got time to catch up. So St. Roy would be one, obviously, at the bigger prices that I can't see why anyone wouldn't have him on a slip, especially like I say, Bet365 the option of the cash out. They're quite good now with injury news. Like they beat me on a few horses last year. I beat them on a few, so it's twos and fro's. But they're obviously getting smarter and smarter with it because they don't want to be laying or giving you the option of a cash out for a horse when we know it's not going to run at the festival. But hey ho, Bouvet Dare absurd, isn't it? Two-time champion hurdler, 25 to 1 available. The injury last year was just unfortunate more than anything, but it is quite severe in the way that it affects the horse. Not the way that it affects them is in entirely in their body, but it's just an awkward position within the foot, like literally in the foot. It takes some time to heal. Obviously, walking, just general standing, all that sort of stuff, it just takes its toll on it. The biggest concern with me with that is how much training they could have got into him last year. And with an older horse, I think if you miss a season, then you have to come back. You're going to have lost a massive percentage of how good you are. So yeah, I mean, he shouldn't be doing it, should he? But it'd be good to see him back. Sharjah ran so well in the champion hurdle last year. I don't know. If he was going to do it, he should have done it then. Obviously, Aramon was the one with Saint Roy. He's come out and he's won races since. I'm not a massive Aramon fan either. I'm slightly disappointed if he was good enough to be winning a champion hurdle. Saudio I like, an injury-prone horse though. That's the problem. And then we're starting to get to the point now where are we talking about real, genuine champion hurdle horses? I don't really think we are. Classical Dream's the semi interesting one, just because I can forgive a horse a bad run. He had a bad season last year, so I can't necessarily forgive him that. But the fact that they pulled him out and they just decided to do something else with him, wherever they decide to go with him, whether they do go chase him, if they keep him over hurdles, I'd just still have him sort of on side, I think. Not that I'd be looking to anti-post punt him, but I just think he's a nice enough horse. And then we're going to get to the point now where we're looking at some potentially triumphy horses that didn't run so well last year. We know the 4-year-old to 5-year-old record. It's almost pointless getting this far down in terms of horses that are in here. But there's going to be something potentially, a huge prize in here that might go and end up running well. So Solo was obviously so highly rated as a juvenile last year, but you can't imagine that Paul Nicholls is going to be looking to be training a champion hurdle horse, etc., etc. So champion hurdle, yeah, it's do what you want, but if you haven't got Saint Roy on your team sheet this far out, then you're probably doing something wrong. And it's annoying as well because the more people that say it, the more it almost feels like, well, I don't want to do that. I've missed the boat a little bit. You haven't. If you don't back it now, you've missed the boat. Envoy Land, the start of the season last year for the Ballymore was about 11s, I think. He wasn't even a very big price. I remember messaging a few lads about it, just saying, like, how deep have you got in, given that he's probably a bit shorter than he should be. And a handful of them weren't actually going to be backing him anti-post. They were just saying, it's too short a price, it's ridiculous, he's got to make it to the festival. And I did talk him into it. It was just the fact that he's only going to get short. A Champ was short for the RSA at the beginning of the season, probably only 7 or 8 to 1. But they're horses that are only going to get shorter as the season goes on. Sometimes there's a bigger like goal for value, like a Paisley Park 11 to 2 at the start of the season. But there's just some horses that you sort of need to get on your team sheet. The ones that are shorter are obviously a bit scarier to steam into, but something that's 20 to 1 plus, I just don't see any harm in sticking a Sky Bet free bet or any of those sort of things on there. I do prefer the cash outside of it because you get a chance to maybe get some of your money back. But hey ho, Mare's Hurdle. I feel like for me this is fairly straightforward because Honeysuckle's going to come here. I'm saying that like it's gospel. Honeysuckle is going to come here as far as I'm concerned. Honeysuckle's going to win this. Benny Deju, like we just don't know where she's going to go. But I'd be so disappointed if they did not put Benny Deju in the Mare's Chase because Benny Deju would Like there's nothing that would get near it in a mare's chase. Even if Honeysuckle was over fences, she'd be a novice. You're not going to be capable of doing it. Now I know Benny hasn't jumped a fence in a little while, but she was so good over fences. I think maybe she might need a bit of that now because the race that she won in the build up to Cheltenham and Willie Mullins was saying it's the best horse he's ever trained and all those sort of things. You just think to yourself, look, we know that she's got an absolute engine. Now, tactically, Paul Townend didn't have his finest hour at Cheltenham in the mare's hurdle. But I don't know. I just feel like if it was a chase race, you've got a bit more. Like it takes a bit more out of you to jump a fence, and I just don't think with Benny Dew it does. I just think she's effortless. A bad mistake at a fence obviously can cost you massively, but the tempo they pick up off the back of a fence, everything just suits. 2.5 mile. Obviously, if she came to the mare, she'd be of interest. But the fact that Honeysuckle beat her last year, you'd feel bad for thinking that Honeysuckle wouldn't be able to step up on that and wouldn't be able to hold that form. And then we had years before, didn't we, where we had Limini, Let's Dance as well, I think, Apples J. There's a few of them that sort of mingle with each other and then they beat each other over and over again. Just put Benny in the mare's chase, let her go and get another festival win. And it's the first time that race is being run. Willie Mullins is going to want to win it, so he'll have a handful in there. There isn't anything at a price that would really lure me in, but obviously Concertista is the most obvious. Again, it's Willie Mullins going in there. Burning Victory that won the Triumph last year would be, I think, the fact that we have the juveniles, they step up in trip, normally suits them the season after, could potentially be one that we look at and think, actually, do you know what? This is now going to be the new Mares Division star. And I really like Burning Victory before the festival as well. I mentioned it in the Colossus preview that I did on the day. I mean, I didn't really get much of a look from anyone on the panel when I chucked her in. But they're the types of horses that, they won at the right time of year. They've won the right type of race. Admittedly, Goshen would have won the Triumph, but still, big price, one that you might think is worth having a little tickle on, I reckon. But yeah, I mean, Honeysuckle would win it. The thing that obviously worries you is Shishkin, is going to the Arkle. I mean, obviously, if he's bad over fences, he won't. But then if he's bad over fences, he wouldn't win it. We just don't 100% know with Honeysuckle. But I think she should go for the mare's hurdle. If we knew that was definitely a target, then her price would shorten up significantly. So that's where you have to weigh up, is there enough juice in the price? And I'm not 100% sure there is. Now, National Hunt Chase is a race I used to like. I'm sort of getting bored of it now because I keep backing Antepost and I keep getting on the right sort of lines, and then it just keeps going wrong. So there's a couple that I think are probably interesting at reasonable prices. I think Colin Fire, this race is absolutely made for a horse like him. I know he hasn't gone anything over 2.5 mile. He might have done a 2 mile 6, but he's the sort of horse just stamina laden. I think we'll just have to see where things go, won't we? There's always a class horse that comes in here. I feel like Monkfish is a proper RSA horse, but he might actually be suited to a race like this. Now, we had it not so long ago when Native River, Manila Rocco came in to this race, didn't they? And you just think, I don't know, in recent years, have the right calibre of horses come in here. Maybe they should have been going RSAs or whatever, but we could have an absolute red-hot fire RSA this year. So I feel like we might have some better horses coming here. Carefully Selected was the one that I put up last year, which obviously didn't work out, and he was a 33 to 1 poke for any race. So that's the sort of area we want to be looking in. We want to be looking around these sorts of prices. Now, Aone's going to be one that lots of people talk about. Rich Reiki ran okay in the Albert Bartlett, and 33-ish, you can see that. We'll just have to see, won't we? I know Paul Nicholls used to do all right in the National Hunt Chase. He had a few runners in there, so Next Destination's gone to him, potentially. I mean, there's going to be something in here at a big price that you might want to latch onto a little bit. The only one for me at this moment that would be semi-tempting would be Column of Fire. And to be honest with you, I think 25 is probably plenty short enough. I'd be wanting that any race on the horse, to be fair. So anywho, we'll move on to the Wednesday. We'll move on to the Ballymore. And this again, where Fernie Holler that's been mentioned, Ballyadam, Bob Oddinger, who else is going to be in there? Appreciate it. It's just the first four in the market, you just know are there on vibe and hype. Splitting them out, I'd probably say that I feel like Fernie Hollow is going to come here, but I also feel like Fernie Hollow would be better in the Supreme. So I'm a bit torn with confidence on there. And like I say, I've jumped on the Ballyadam hype and I've backed Ballyadam for the Supreme and a bit on Fernie Hollow for the Ballymore. We'll see how it plays out. But again, the cash out benefits. Look at Envoy last year, Ballymore favourite. When it gets to Antepost, non-runner no bet, he was favourite for the Supreme anyway. So you've still got the option, if you back these horses even if it is in the wrong race, with someone like a Bet365, unless they suspend it because they want to be, sly about it, you still have the potential, if you back the right horse and they run well, to get a bit of value and sometimes getting some cover. I know a lot of lads that had Envoy in the Supreme as well, and they weren't sweating a bother when it got near the festival and there was talk about it. So you don't have to necessarily get it exactly right this far out. We're just looking for the range of horses to see what we're interested in there. I think at bigger prices, Farouk Delan's one that's been talked about plenty as well. I mean, I'd definitely want to see more about that. Um, I don't really know. I don't think there's a lot that really jumps out until we get to this bad boy. Ben Pauling last season was, I don't think, in any real sort of proper form. He knows how to train a horse. There's another one of his horses that's going to get mentioned in a short while. That's a big price that I've already had a novelty double on the pair of them. The life-changing sums of a tenner double that would buy a new house. But Your Darling looked really good. There's the comparisons, obviously, with Best Mate, all of that, yada, yada, yada. That's more because of Henrietta Knight's involvement, I think. But he looks a really nice horse. You'd have to forgive him that bumper run because obviously if you didn't, he's got no chance in here. I just think he's a sort of like almost could be like a bit of a wise guy's choice as the season goes on. Nearer the time, I can just imagine he'll be 14, 16s nearer the time and people will start saying he's the value bet. He did it with Willoughby Court a few years ago. How he starts out the season with his horse, we don't know. Bright Forecast is the one that's going to get mentioned in the RSA. He obviously plotted him through to a Ballymore as well, a very different route to what happened with Willoughby Court. But I just think that Your Darling would be coming to the Ballymore. Don't think he'd be going to a Supreme. I think he wants further. Still, obviously, we need to see how the season goes. You can get him a decent price for any race anyway. But yeah, he would be one at a big price that I think, again, some sort of involvement needs to be on him, I would suspect. There's going to be a few other sort of hurdlers that, or that are going to be novice hurdlers this season that will be added to the market as time goes on. But I just think the normal logical trail of thought, i.e., where the market is at the top, is probably about right. I wouldn't be overly confident or anything in this race this far out as I was with something like Envoy last year. There's a lot of horses that could run well, and I still think we could get to the festival and we could end up having 4 or 5 to 1 the field in a Ballymore. That's the way the makeup of the race looks. Of course, when it gets to Ireland and we've got your Bob Oddinger, your Ballyadam, your Appreciator, your Fernie Hollow, all of those horses having to run against each other, we'll soon sort out the pecking order. It's the British Raiders that we need to be thinking about in terms of something's got to be the best middle distance British challenger, and that's where further down the field you've got to look to try and find those types of horses. So it's an interesting market for sure. Nothing to get too excited about this far out, I would suggest. Obviously, if we'd have done this last year, I'd have just told you to get your pants on Envoy Elan, but that's not really a tip, is it? So, speaking of getting your pants on Envoy Elan is going to win the RSA, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, obviously, I can be wrong. I have been wrong on multiple occasions. But do we all remember before this horse even ran in a bumper, Malone Road was the champion bumper winner, wasn't he? Champion bumper winner. There was talk of Envoy Land even back then that this is a Gold Cup horse. And I think that's got lost massively with Malone Road's injury. And then the focus becoming on him being a new superstar. And then he did the goods in the bumper. Even last year, the talk of, he might go in a Supreme. Look, come on, guys. He is a beast. He stayed out so strongly on the Ballymore. It would be an absolute crime if they ran him in the marsh. Now, I know a very good horse, Valtor, went that route, did the JLT, and then the year after when he should have gone for the Gold Cup and he wasn't 100%, and he ran in the Ryanair and he waltzed up in that, he could have won the Gold Cup, yada, yada, yada. I just don't want that to happen with Envoy Elan, and I do not think that's going to happen with Envoy Elan. What I mean happen is that they're going to, if you run him in a marsh and you know that that's the distance that's in there, he's already proven he can stay 2 mile 5 in the Ballymore. He doesn't have to necessarily go and win an RSA to like confirm his status as a Gold Cup horse. But the aim with this horse now is, obviously you want to keep winning races. It's got to be preparation for a Gold Cup. And this horse is capable of that. Now, I can't see why they'd stick him in the marsh. Cheveley Park Stud did it last year with Allaho. They ran him in the RSA, and I think he should have probably gone for a marsh. I mean, he ran well, to be fair, didn't he? So wasn't all far off. And I know William Mullins makes the choices, but Cheveley Park, they want a Gold Cup horse. I think they want an RSA winner as well. They're right in the fact that it's the stepping stone for it. Horses that win marches do not go on to win Gold Cups. Um, so, like, sort of enough kind of said on that. But if you think Envoy Lan is the price that he is for the Marsh, because the general vibe, for whatever reason, is he's going to go and run in the Marsh, and that may play out that that's it. I think the general vibe should be that this horse is clearly going to run in an RSA, and when you look at 8-1 available, now I know Gordon Elliott, Betfair, it worries people, doesn't it? But just stop it. It's absurd. Envoy Land's too big a price for this race. Now you can get any race markets for Envoy Land, but you're going to be looking shorter than his lowest price. There's no value in that for me. I just, again, Bet365 did trim it up when Paul Ferguson's Jumpers to Follow book came out, because there was talk in there about it. I think they were just saying about how he stays. Jamie Codd said something along the lines. He was sevens. They've only skimmed him in a point. It's another one. Just get on him. Antepost with a cash out available. Again, I can't promise you will be able to cash out, because they might cancel it. If worst comes to worst and you get near the time and you need to sort of trade out of it, you can go on the exchange and you can do it. But Envoy Lan, even if he was confirmed to go to the Marsh nearer the time, he's going to be short for an RSA, just because that's the nature of how those two races work. They're going to leave it, I feel, like quite a while down the line until they confirm their targets. Of course they would. They've got to try the horse over different trips. He's going to be in the RSA as far as I'm concerned. Worst case scenario is they try and step him up before the festival, because they will have to test him at 2 mile 6 plus before the festival. The worst case scenario is he just struggles to get home over that trip, and it makes you think, actually, do you know what? He probably is a Marsh horse. But until I'm shown otherwise, this horse is probably going to win the RSA. The caveat with that is Monkfish. I think Monkfish is going to be so good over fences. I reckon this is going to be an RSA for the ages. Now, every year we get that. The top of the game, the Delta Works, Santini, last year, Allaho, Champ, Manila Indo. It's a proper tasty race. This year could potentially be better. But when we're looking further down in there, now I know Fury Road has the typical makeup of a type that should go well as an RSA horse, and I think he probably will. Just because Gordon Elliott's got him does not mean that Cheveley Park Stud are going to change their stance on anything. So I think Fury Road deserves to be talked about in here. Probably not big enough a price for my interest, considering I think Envoy and Monkfish are better than him. Latest exhibition, I think his chance to win at the festival was last year. He's still a very, very nice horse, but just not so sure. Time Hill, we know, is going for the Stairs Hurdle. We're getting to the Big Getaway, definitely he's got a chance. Now, the Ben Pauling horse, Bright Forecast, I mentioned before. I fancied him for the RSA last year, missed the season with injury. I think this is going to be a harder RSA, but I think he's a really nice horse anyway. So another one that at a big price, it might be tempted just to get a little bit of coverage in there. And then again, next destination I mentioned with Paul Nicholls, it's the injury that worries about him. Very similar to Bright Forecast, though, isn't it? Sam's Profile's another horse that will be dotted up in the market somewhere here. People were thinking of him as a staying chaser a little while ago as well. So there's lots of nice horses. Another big there, the Big Breakaway. Lots of horses in here that, I mean, you could probably genuinely piece a 10-runner race off of potential for the RSA, and it's absolutely mouth-watering. So I just think that this is a proper race, it's very punty, and I don't want to be suggesting anything that's punty, because that essentially is it is a bit muggy, really. It's a punt. It's like not slot machine level, but it's punty. I'm taking a punt on the fact that I'm so strongly thinking that Envoy Land's going to come to the RSA. Yes, he's still got to go and prove it over a fence. Yes, he's still got to prove that he is going to be the best chaser. But I just think that if people were thinking the same way as I was, which of course everyone should, shouldn't they? I'm always right. But I just think if everyone was thinking that way, then Envoy Land would not be this sort of price for an RSA. And if we go back to Champ got beat in a Ballymore. Champ was about this price for an RSA last year. Now, I know the view was that he was going to go in RSA, but let's not forget, after he ran at Newbury, people were thinking, hang on a minute, they're not going to run him in the Marsh, are they? So I just think that level of 4, Envoy Lamb was a much better winner at Cheltenham than Champ was a runner-up in the year before. And I know Monkfish was a good winner as well, and that's obviously why the price is there. I can understand why they're doing it. I just think that this is the race that he's got to go for. I'd just be very mindful of that with people that are thinking of sticking Envoy in any bets for the season. Like I say, I'm not going to be 100% right, but I think the price is juicy enough for me to say I want a bit of that action. And I have had a bit, but we'll see. There's only so keen and so deep you can get in this far out in the season, isn't there? And especially at those sorts of prices as well. You'll go skint back in single-figure anti-post punts every year, despite how good you get the value. So onto the Mare's Chase. As I say, Willie Munnings is going to want to win this. He could run as many as he wanted in, really. Salsaretta's the Rich Riki mare. She won, I think it was probably a novice chase in and around the festival last year. She didn't come over um, to test her mettle at the festival. She fell, I think, in the mare's novice a while back. Nice, very nice mare, but she had her time to show what she could do, and I don't think she would. Well, she wouldn't be good enough if Benny came here, but she's a nice one. Honeysuckle's not going to come here. Put the kettle on. Arkle winner. Would you really want to run the Arkle winner in a in a mare's chase, or would you want to go champion chase? I don't know. It just depends how she fares, I guess, this season in open company as to what they might do at the festival. Um, you got to go for the race you're most likely to win away from the prestige. I think if Put the Kettle On had been beaten in Arkle, they might prefer to chase down the bigger target of something like a champion chase, maybe. Um, but obviously interesting. Eddie May, the JP horse. There's Elfield in there. She's been supported quite a lot recently, so there's obviously been comments that this is the way they're going to go with that. And I think, again, with the Kenneth Alexander thing, he's got the mare's programme. He's going to want to have a status in this race. It almost, again, confirms Honeysuckle's clearly staying over hurdles. They've already made that comment. That's maybe why Elfield was nibbled in, giving that a little tap on the old screen there. Benny Juju. Oh, it's just, I can't, it's worse than the Envoy one because I'm far less confident that Benny Juju's going to run here just because of the Willie Mullins bingo in it. But if Benny Juju, like, let's just imagine Willie Mullins comes out tomorrow close Sutton. I'm going to give a few season pointers of what's going on this year. And Benny Juju is going back over fences without even suggesting the mare's chase. She's like, everyone's going to know that's the fences he's talking about. If Benny Juju was going to be running in this race, again, granted that Honeysuckle's not coming here, Benny Juju, I'm not even joking, should be like a 5-2 poke Antepost for this race. Like, it's obscene. Now, I know I'm punting on the fact that they might come this way, and there's a lot of logic that would suggest that they're not going to come for the mare's chase, but I don't care. It's too big a price. And again, Betfair's 100% cash out at the moment, so I've backed her at 20s on there. You can get a boost with Paddy Power as well, up to 22s, I think, but you can get 100% cash out now. So, of course, you've got to be quick if there's any news that comes out, but I'll try and get as much out as I can. But you could have a bet on this. Betfair Paddy Power aren't going to get any secret news on Willie Mullins. No bookmakers ever really seem to get it. Sometimes there's a bit of a move on the exchanges, but last year when they confirmed, who was it? Oh, I was going to do my head in now. No, Lorena. A couple of years ago when they said that she was going to go champion hurdle, we got the message. I put it on the page. 16-1. She was cut into like 8s, I think. But we still, all of us managed to get on at the 16s. I think a few people got 20s as well that was available. Just mean that if there was any news that comes out to suggest she's not going there, i.e., I see she's entered in a hurdle race instead. I mean, that doesn't mean she's not going to go chasing, but you can potentially say, do you know what? Screw this, Dave. I'm cash now. I don't want to run the risk. The other thing you have to remember with someone like Willie Mullins and a horse like Benny Juju is the fact that they could change their mind. Like Willie, it wouldn't surprise me for Willie Mullins to test Benny Juju. I don't know where they're going to go. You wouldn't go champion hurdle with her. You're going to go mares, take on Honeysuckle. I mean, what's the point in proving you can beat Honeysuckle? I think we all know that. You're just going to force yourself maybe to try and prove it at Cheltenham. Do they step her up in trip? Do they go for the 3 mile division and think, hang on a minute, we could go and win the stairs hurdle? But she's very, like, they could do that. It could work out. It could not work out. Things could fall apart at the festival. Horses get injured, all that sort of stuff. They could revert to any race when it comes to the festival is what I'm trying to say there. But I just feel like Benny Juju doesn't have a lot of like racing before a festival, and I think if they're going to go over fences, they're gonna have to run her over fences beforehand. What sort of race they'd run her in is tricky because do you just give her a pants race, a mare's race that she could just go and dot up in, which is what this essentially is going to turn out to be, if I'm brutally honest, or do you stick her in with some proper horses and test her while she's chasing? I mean, I don't think she's got anything to prove. So how that pans out is interesting. She's just a stupid price. Now again, Betfree's it's 5. You've got it there. Maybe an easier cash out. It's 95%. Betfair's 100%. You can get 14s. I just implore people. It's like agreed. I don't want people wasting money. You're all free to have your own opinion. You're all free to do whatever you want. But I might not have got this right, but if they say that Benny Juju goes chasing before she even does anything, she's going to be so short, and she'll hack up. Watched her when she won at Carlisle, when she came over here to run in a race. That was one of my biggest bets for an odds-on poke, and I don't normally steam into it, but I had her as a tens-on poke. I think I can't remember what it was, 4 to 5, 4 to 6, and it was just obscene. I had Christmas money on that. she's just a proper chaser. And I remember a few years ago, Vroom Vroom Mag, I had her pinned as a potential Ryanair horse. Never happened, did it? So I don't always get it right, but it's all I can say on the mare's chase. I can't talk to you about any of the other horses because it's just all about Benny. And if Benny G didn't come here, I actually think it would be a shambles of a race. And that sounds horrible, and it does no disrespect to the other horses. But you know, when we get the mare's novice, people just say, "Oh, it's they could go in against the boys." The mare's hurdles finally reached a point now where it's got some prestige about it. We're talking about horses, champion hurdlers or potentially stayers hurdlers. This mare's chase has been put on the card for a reason. If Benny G doesn't come here, it's an absolute farce. I talked about Vroom Vroom Mag for the Ryanair. If this race was available, Vroom Vroom Mag would have come here, and Vroom Vroom Mag would have won it over and over again. I just think it's about winning races. I just think that she's the one to be on, and I can't believe the price. To be honest with you, I'd be backing her if she was 8, 6, 7 to 1, even knowing that I'm taking a punt on whether she comes here or not. The fact that she's 14s is just, I don't care if she doesn't come here and I lose my money. I mean, I do. I'll just cash out and try and get it out. But you know what I mean. I feel like it's worth doing. We'll move on to the champion chase now. I mean, it's still early in the week, and I've been waffling for ages, so I'll try and go for a little bit quicker. But I want to just let you guys know how I feel about it. Champion chase is an interesting one. Well, interesting is an understatement, given the fact that the race was such an anti-climax after all those horses didn't turn up. And bloody Dynamite Dollars as well gets himself into a small field. I put him up at 50s at the start of the season. He can't even get the job done. Oh, it's infuriating. But Defi Desoy, 14 to 1 again, Betfair Paddy Power. We don't know where they're going to go with him. Maybe they'll go Ryanair, but he's a Tingle Creek winner. Let's not forget that. He won all the right races at 2 miles. Slower chase would be the, I think, logical step to start with him here. But maybe they'll hold back and they'll kick off at the Tingle Creek because potentially he was over raced going into the festival. I don't know. There's got to be something in there. You have to draw a line through that. The way he won the Triumph, we know he handles Cheltenham. The way he won the Slower, he handles Cheltenham. He just had a bad day, and we've all had bad days. Me more so than anyone. But do not. It's absurd. He's so young. Chacun Pour Soi still hasn't run at Cheltenham. Altior is so old now. He's old enough to smoke, isn't he? Defi Desoy is the right age, the right profile for a champion chaser. Now, of course, you have to be stupid to not worry about what happened last year. But if you consider beginning of last season, not really sure what sort of distance he was going to go, and again, I know that's a problem this year, but we know that he was going to be favourite for a champion chase, and deservedly so. That's probably going to happen again with the way these races line up. I know things can happen, but back in last season, we were getting sort of 16 to 1, 20 to 1 maybe for him to win a champion chase. We're getting 14 to 1 about a horse that's got hardly any question marks about the fact, is he capable of running at the best at 2 miles? We know he is. So I just can't see why they would stick him in a Ryanair unless he has a bad season. I just think he's. I think that he has to be the one to be the play at the prices at this point. Now Altior I was keen on last year, 9 to 2 ish. Thought he should have been shorter. It is just the extra year on now is a big concern for me. So I'd love to see Altior there. I can't be backing him Antepost in the slightest. And then when we move down to some of the other horses, they're like Politologue that won it last year was. I mean, it won it last year because of everything else that happened to everyone else. I just think we're getting further down. There's horses in here that I just wouldn't be particularly sold on. There's horses from the Marsh, the Forheen, Sam Crow, and Melon. It was a fantastic finish. We know they're all really good horses. I'm just a bit suspect of the level of that form, like where they're going to go for next season in terms of this season. That sort of trip, do you think they are any of them Gold Cup horses? Well, they might try a bit with Sam Crow, mightn't they, this year? Is Mellon a Gold Cup horse? Like, probably not in the slightest, but you don't know, do you? Maybe the step up in trip might even suit him further. And then obviously Forheen, I mean, I don't even know if he'll race again this season, but Mellon potentially could be twice runner-up in a champion hurdle, might fit the profile of a bigger priced one. It just depends how they get tested. Silas Emery, unfortunately, probably would have picked up the pieces in that champion chase had they have not supplemented for the champion hurdle. So that's another one that still hurts a little bit. But I think so much sort of pans around Defi in this race for me. We know Chacun Poussoir could win a championship. We know Altior's capable of it. There's horses in it we know are capable. I'd say a Plutard we know isn't capable of it. Although he did run okay over 2 miles, so maybe they might think of coming back cheaply for this season. Um, Politolog obviously did win a championship, so it's a bit rude of me to say that he's not capable. But I just feel like we know where the market should be. Like a lot of those novice races, but with the novice races, we don't know how good those horses are going to be at the actual discipline. Whereas this, we do know. I just think Defi at 14s is the one to be on from this far out. So yeah, just it's more a case this far out the prices. There's a few I think you just want to get on your team sheet. Um, I'm not even going to bother with the cross country because it's easy sland and he's going to be short and it's a novelty race. There's just no point um, getting involved in that. The champion bumper's so hard this far out because there's lots of, even when you look at trends and stuff, I'm into them to a degree. Like Fernie Hollow. If Fernie Hollow hadn't have won a race before Cheltenham, I would have cashed out every single one of my Antepost bets. Um, I actually did take some cash out on one of them, which fumed me a bit because I rebacked him after, so I lost some prize. It was rookie from my behalf, but I didn't think he was going to get that extra run in. Anywho, those sorts of things. You want a horse coming in here off the back of a win. You also want a horse that's run fairly close to it. You want a horse that's not too exposed. And we're probably not going to know who a lot of these horses are. Now, Hollow Games has been mentioned by Gordon Elliott as a horse to follow. There's also been talk off the back of that he might be seen soonish. That would worry me, seeing a horse so soon for a champion bumper. But it's a race that I don't really see any value in getting stuck into now. There will be talk, there will be comments, there will be hype about horses as the season goes on. We've had a Nergamine for years before. Fernie Hollow was one that I said. I mean, around this time of year we were told about it, and it did transpire that was the right way to be on it. I just think there's the sort of horses where you just maybe just calm down a little bit and just wait till you hear something, hear these vibes, because we're not going to have enough evidence, even from their points, to be able to make a factual decision about how good they are. The hype surrounding them from the stable, hearing the right things, all that sort of stuff is more important, I think, for this. And then you're punting off the back of someone say so and sort of a gut feel. So you can't get too involved in this race from an Antepost perspective, but there will be horses at bigger prices that you think, do you know what, again, I might just stick a free bet on, or I might just stick a couple of quid on to have a go with it. And again, if you do it with Bet365, you will get the best potential cash out. That's caveated with the fact that Betfair will offer you 100%, but then Betfair won't give you any bonus on top if the price shortens. The Marsh, obviously, I've whittled so much about Envoy going for the RSA that I won't even mention him in here, to be honest, too much. I think he could win a Marsh, he could win an RSA. It's like I said, I think he's got to go RSA. But anyway, we'll see how it transpires. I could be completely wrong. A lot of people will have done the Shishkin Envoy Elan double. I did mention that, I think, on the last video because of the fact that the votes went that way. I don't know what is it, 4 and 5, so 20 to 1 the double pays. I personally have done that as well. I've got a £25 double on Shishkin and Envoy Elan for those two races, despite how much I'm raving about him winning the RSA. I've got a reasonable single on him for the RSA. I'll leave my book as it is for that for now. But yeah, I wouldn't be wanting to steam into Envoy Elan at 3 to 1 for a Marsh when there's 4 to 1 available for Shishkin for an Arkle, if that makes sense. And you're looking at in here when we're looking at in terms of competition, very similar with the Arkle. You're having to go down to bigger prices to try and find something to necessarily beat the market. Now Shishkin's not going to come here. The big getaway, we don't know where they're going to go, but you'd think the two bigs would be proper stay-in prospects. But you don't definitely know. I mean, Honeysuckle's in here. Time Hill's not coming here. Chantry House, the one that was mentioned in the Arkleish thing, I think he's the logical selection for a lot of people now. So maybe he's one to get in the book. And again, when Bet365 are top price on some of these horses, it's almost a no-brainer to get it on, because once he goes down to 16s, you'll get your 100% cash out. Once he's ended up in a race, all those sort of things, it might be worth just whether you stick him in doubles or small bets or whatever. Chantry House will be one probably to get on your team sheet at some point, whether it's a single or a multi. The one that I have mapped out to win the Marsh Novices Chase, I think Easy Work could be the answer. And this will come up in my horses to follow. I always say I don't want to say too much, but I always do. I think Easy Work was really, really good in the Ballymore. I think he's going to only get better this season. I think
lots of people are going to be talking about him being the staying horse, him being the RSA horse. He needs to go further. Yada yada yada. I don't think that at all. I think that he needs to stay where he is in terms of trip. 2.5 is bang on for him. Now you look at the golfing prices between Bet Victor 25s and 16 to 1 for Bet 365. It looks a bigger number because it's 9 points, but in a percentage term, it isn't like a huge value squeeze. Well, the value is okay in there. I mean more like the percentage chance of winning a race. If you've got an even money poke, it's 50-50 whether it wins or not. 25 to 1 poke, you're talking a 4% chance. And then a 16 to 1 poke, what we're talking, 8% chance, something like that. So it's 4% sway. Anywho, easy work. I think this is the race that they're going to end up going with him, personally. We talked about Fury Road as a Gordon Elliott's horse for an RSA, maybe. He might want to go further. Giggstown have got other options, I feel, for the stay-in chasers. I think Easy Work is a proper marsh horse. I think he's a massive prize. And again, that line behind Envoy Elan, if it does transpire that Envoy goes RSA, which I think he will, people are going to be looking for what the next best alternative is. And lots of people did it last season. Just back whatever was behind Envoy Elan, and it worked out all right. The form lines just kept getting boosted and boosted and boosted, and I just feel like he's the one that people are going to latch onto. The fact that Bet365 are a lot shorter doesn't necessarily mean they know best, but it just goes to show that they're, I think, thinking along the right sort of lines. That said, you can see they've got Monkfish at 12s and he's 20s elsewhere. I could not see Monkfish dropping back in trip, but it's tricky. But where I am at with the marsh right now is I think Easy Work's the only one to be back in. I haven't given too many other horses probably the amount of respect they deserve to be in terms of looking at them. Mentioned Fiddler on the Roof. I mean, he could transpire into this sort of type of horse. You can see there's lots of horses in here that aren't really priced up with too many bookmakers. Sporting John obviously flopped in that Ballymore. Potentially could be one that comes in here. But I just think the form from Easy Work last season's stonking. For me, he should probably be a 12 to 1 poke behind Envoy for this race. I know we don't know definitely where he's going, but I wouldn't want to be laying Easy Work at 25s for a marsh. So that's where I'm at with it. Chantry House at 20s would be the other one with the eye half on that, although I haven't placed that myself. Envoy fans, I know people will be getting on with it. Fair play to you if you want to have a go at him at 3 to 1 Antepost for this race. Like I say, last year we knew the Ballymore was the target. Last year we knew he was going to be one of the best novice hurdlers, and he was 11 to 1 for the Ballymore, and that felt tight. So I'm just putting into perspective here that it's not 100% he's going to come to the marsh. It may be. Some people may be so adamant he's going to come here, and it might be the race that he comes to. I really think he's going to go RSA. And if he did come here, of course, he's got a massive chance. But if I think he's a Gold Cup horse, obviously Lost in Translation, ran in a marsh, and then goes on to potentially look like a Gold Cup horse after, he got tapped for toe. He got beaten by a speedier horse. Now, I'm not saying that Envoy Elan's slow by any means. He quickened up nicely in the Ballymore, but it's a very different test. A marsh to a potential Gold Cup further down the line, and an RSA to a Gold Cup further down the line. Look at Albert Photo in the RSA. I backed him for the marsh. He should have run in the marsh. He probably would have won the marsh, and then I could have been saying, hang on a minute, it doesn't matter. Marsh winners can go and win a Gold Cup. But Willie Mullins ran him in the RSA. It was the right race for him. He fell. He was the horse that broke Ruby's leg. It worked out for the better in the long run. He won an RSA. Would you want to win the marsh and then it doesn't happen after? And I know that's not logical to say that's what pans out for the future for every horse. You just have to think the way that the trainers' connections and people are thinking. You have to do what's best by the horse in terms of their future. I think with Colin Tizzer, we've Lost in Translation, in fairness to him, he wasn't sure what the trip would be, and there has been comments. A lot of people don't think he really stays. I think Richard Johnson's ridden him and was worried about him staying in the Gold Cup trip. I think those doubts have probably been alleviated now, but I don't think there's any such worries about Envoy Elan as it stands. Of course, he's still got to go and prove it, but that's where I'm at. Easy Work, I think, is the sensible bet for the marsh. Again, some of that is riding on what happens with Envoy, but I've done Envoy in the double with Shishkin just because I feel like I'd regret if I didn't. But it's going to be fascinating to see how the season goes. It's going to be exciting to see how the betting, etc., goes in there. Ryanair, again, the Marsh and the Ryanair used to be looked at as inferior. They're not anymore. The quality's better. They deserve more respect than probably even I give them in there. Min got the job done last year. Feel like that's it. That's his redemption. I'm not sure whether he's going to go and back it up again. Obviously not getting any younger. Sam Crow, I touched on the fact, do you reckon they might, maybe they do now, maybe they do decide to try and push him as a Gold Cup horse? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me that if they've got to test him, haven't they, over a trip? Because they never have, and he was talked about a future Gold Cup horse. So It might be that he flops, falls back, and ends up as a Ryanair horse. Who knows? With Samcro, we just don't know. From an anti-post perspective, he could have a whole season where he's hacking up, he's hacking up, he's hacking up. I would just suspect they're going to have to test him stamina, and if he were to hack up throughout the season, testing his stamina would mean he wouldn't be a short price for the Ryanair. If you fancy Sam Crow like this, I would suspect we might still get a price nearer the time. A Plutard's probably around about the right price, but then what happens with him and Alaho? Alaho was running the RSA. I mean, you, people will say that he didn't stay because of how Champ stayed on, and fair enough. But again, he's only a baby. It's the right stepping stone for going for a Gold Cup. Um, I feel like Alaho would have a good chance in a Ryanair. I feel like Alaho would be running in the Gold Cup next year. And then it depends what they do, doesn't it? Because they've got a Plutard that could come here again. They might decide to go back to 2 miles with him and just test the water a little bit further. Um, but yeah, I think Alaho's plenty short enough for this. And I know a lot of people will jump on it and think that he's a really good bet for the Ryanair. And fair play to him for having those balls. I feel like he's already being steered into an into a Gold Cup type. And and in fairness, I think he could run in a Gold Cup this year. And if he did flop, bugger it, go and win a Ryanair next year. That's the sort of pecking order I see the Ryanair. Or he could go and run in a Gold Cup. He could run well in a Gold Cup, and you think, hang on a minute, next year he's only going to get better. Or he's potentially the age that he is, he's got a few seasons of that. So that's where I'm at with him. Definitely, we could see the price in and about there. I'd much rather take 14-1 Defi for a champion chase than 16-1 Defi for a Ryanair. He's potentially capable to win a Ryanair. Don't get me wrong, but I do think again it's a bit of an afterthought. I don't think many horses start their season thinking, yeah, let's go for the Ryanair. Real Steel was so good in the Gold Cup for a long way, so that's probably where they're going to have to be thinking about going with him. There could be some interesting ones in here. Now, Gordon Elliott's got presenting Percy, and we suspect there'll be some sort of handicap-ish, dodgy, some sort of going-ons there. He's not featured with many bookmakers, but he's the sort of horse who wouldn't surprise me if he came back and he won a Ryanair. Mellon, that we touched on a little bit, maybe that's the sort of place that he'll go. Angel's Breath was so good as a novice last year before the injury. That could potentially be a massive price. We'll just see how things go with that horse in terms of how it comes back and where they start it out. We've got Altior there being nibbled in with 10 bet. You'd ignore the novelty bookmakers. You'll notice Ladbroke Coral aren't on at the moment. I think there's been a bit of a disagreement between the group, but obviously on the anti-post prices, you want to check those websites as well. Sometimes 10 bet and Sport Nation just follow those couple of bookies, which is why they fall down. But yeah, I mean, I'd be sad to see Altior in a Ryanair, although I don't know, would he have a better chance than a champion chase? I don't know. Yeah, and we're whittling down to other horses now here, where we've got some probably simply the bets. Imperial Aura both won their respective races at the festival. They could make into those types. Master Dino could be back, couldn't he? There's always something at a bit of a wild price that tends to be in there. There's nothing on my particular radar as that stands. I would just think that there's a lot of horses here that I don't think their first target is going to be this race, and that's always a bit of a worry. I think last season for Min, in fairness to him, I think they probably were thinking about the Ryanair for a long time out. We'll move on to the Stairs Hurdle. Again, I'm conscious that I've been talking for Lord knows how long. It's almost lunchtime and people have got lives. But Stairs Hurdle, again, last season, Paisley Park was 4-1-ish, I think, about this time of the year. You could get 11-2 after the festival over the summer. Obviously, he's a bigger price this time round. I think he needs to be on a few slips, to be honest. It's tricky with a horse that had what happened to him last year. But I think the freak way that race was run, like Richard Johnson and Apple's Jade, was absurd. Like, I don't know why they would do it. And sometimes I'm a bit sceptical, thinking, oh, they've gone out to ruin a horse's race. I can't imagine Richard Johnson's like that in the slightest. I suspect he was just given the orders just to let a bowl along in front. Whether he knew how fast he was going, I mean, you'd like to think he did, but they probably just thought, you know what, she stays, let's let her go, and then let's just see if they can get anywhere near her. Now, she was too free, she went too fast. I know this isn't saying this is what caused Paisley's heart, but it was a weird race, and I don't know what the jockeys would have said in the weighing room beforehand or any of that sort of stuff. I cannot imagine many jockeys starting that race thinking, hang on a minute, what's going on here? And I imagine that Aidan Coleman probably fairly early on was a little bit concerned, and I don't know whether that played anything in there. Of course, it was the heart thing. We'll rule it down as that. There's enough for me to say, do you know what, Paisley deserves another chance. it may not be for him. But he missed a race last season, didn't he? He was going to run Ascot, maybe long walk hurdle, I think it was, and there was some ground that Emma Lavelle was a bit worried about, so that didn't happen. They were thinking of staying to run at Punchestown with him this season, and again the heart thing. I know that's completely separate from it. That's not apart from anything else. But I just feel like this year maybe they're going to think, you know what, actually, let's just focus on Cheltenham, focus on getting him back to the track. But again, you'd want to see him run again, wouldn't you, before you start getting too keen. Benny, again, you see the price rise, you could see it potentially happening, but no, runner in the Mare's Chase. Let's all get a bit of our mortgage paid off. Time Hill, we know, is coming here. So you can still get 16s Betfred. Again, anybody that does not have him on their Antepost portfolio this far out is missing a trick. Not saying he's going to go off at a 6-4 poke or anything like that, but it's a confirmed target. I like Albert Bartlett form going into Stairs Hurdle. I reckon it's me promoting it. I think the Albert Bartlett's getting better and better as a race year on year. We've got a really good crop that ran in it this particular season. But Time Hill, I think he looks good. The only thing I'll say with that is things like Kilbrick and Storm. I know he was a big price winner of an Albert Bartlett, but he won an Albert Bartlett and he was still 50s for a Stairs Hurdle the season after. In fairness to him, he went over fences, didn't he, before he came back? You know what I mean? Harry was still 33s, I think, for the Stairs Hurdle the season after. So in terms of what Time Hill's actually done, he didn't win the Albert Bartlett, did he? And he's this price for a Stairs Hurdle. But all of that said, I think he's one that I'd suspect a lot of you have probably already got a little bit of a slip on him. I think it's worth having him in. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? When I'm talking about him, a horse that didn't even win at the festival, and he's the same price, well, top price, he's actually short with most bookies, than the actual winner of the Stairs Hurdle last year, Lisnagar Oscar. Probably not getting the credit that he deserves. I don't know. I'd pitch him as sort of a Cole Harden type. I think he might run okay in a few races, but I'm just not sold that he's going to be a back-to-back Stairs Hurdle winner. I might regret saying that. He could potentially be the sort of horse where I mentioned about block bets. You could stick him and Time Hill maybe in a block bet and think we'll have two stabs at it and we'll see how it goes. We often get a failed novice chase that will come back into this race. Don't know what that would be, but latest exhibition for me might tick that sort of box. Somerville Boy, probably better in the middle trip, isn't he? But you'd think this is the way that they're going to probably go with him. And then we'll just have to see how things progress for other horses after that. But just don't give up on Paisley Park's probably the moral of the story for me here, but you can't forget what happened. You don't know how much of an effect it's going to have on him. And from an Antepost perspective, he's an okay price, but given the fact that there is those concerns, I'd probably be steering clear of the Stairs for now, other than the obvious little bet we've got on Time Hill just for the sake of having a bet on Time Hill. So Mare's Novice Hurdle. Princess Zoe's the one that's been talked about loads at the minute because Tony Mullins is doing this follow my horse thing on Twitter, which is great. They show you so much content of where she's going. She's been hacking it up on the flat. They've already talked about this is the race that they're going to go to. It would be brilliant if it worked out the way that they're saying it. You see the golfing price between Bet Victor and Skybet. Skybet when they're top price, and on horses like this where I wouldn't be keen to lump into them, I just look at them and just think they are crying out for your £5 free bet. Now, Sky Bet's free bets, they don't expire, I don't think, or they've at least got a year. So lots of people want to save them up until the festival. But at the price that she is, or maybe a couple of free bets or stick her in a double with something, get her on the team sheets, what I'm trying to say, but I wouldn't be backing her singly. I wouldn't be overly confident on her, to be fair. Gypsy Island probably would be the one to win this if she could jump a hurdle. She tried hurdling before, failed, went back over bumpers, had her injury, clearly got a huge engine. Bit risky to be taking the price, I think. Another one, wait till she's entered, you could back her then. If she runs poor, you probably cash out after. If she wins, she's going to shorten up. You're on an okay ticket. Queensbrook, the bumper form from last year is going to stand the test of time, I think. Again, another obviously one. But we're talking about three horses there. Admittedly, one's A. Mullins, but it's not Willie Mullins. Willie Mullins, we know, is the one for this, don't we? What he's going to send in here and what's going to do the deed, I don't really know this far out. But two that I've sort of got on my radar, and two that one I've had a little bit of a bet on, and another one I probably will have a bit of a bet on, is My Whirlwind for Nikki Henderson. I actually backed her for the race last year. 33's managed to cash out that because she just didn't go over hurdles. I think the 25's about as massive. Really do. I know I said I backed her at 33's last year, but I think it's a big price. I think if she comes out and gets a full run at the season this year, then she's going to be best of the British. There's a nice like Mare's program that Nikki Henderson seems to do quite well with. I just feel like she could potentially be superstar level. One similar to that is the Glancing Queen, who, when she won the bumper at Cheltenham, not the champion bumper, she won a bumper before going on to that. Alan King actually said that they were going to send her over hurdles if she hadn't have won that race. The plan was to run her in a bumper and send her hurdling. So that's 2 seasons ago we're talking now. Now, last season that's gone, for whatever reason, she was just a bit backwards. She didn't get to start the season as she did. So they just thought, you know what? Let's retain that novice status. You're not going to be doing that for no reason at all. If there was a plan to get her over fences, if there was a plan to think maybe she's going to make into a mare's hurdle winner, you'd think, oh well, let's go and run in some novice hurdles. If she get like stick her in some grade ones or grade twos, that she's probably going to get beaten, but get her some hurdle experience. They didn't do that. They stuck her in the champion bumper again. I think that talks volumes, and she's clearly very good. That Envoy Land bumper is so good. She's got form behind that. Again, the 25s I think is too big to ignore. So when we're going overly excited because neither of those are your Willie Mullins, but I think there are a couple that are probably on the right lines of the way to be thinking this far out. But you can't get too keen. And another race that we can't get too keen on this far out is the Triumph Hurdle. Half of the horses that are probably going to run well in this, we don't even know who they are yet. Mon Miral, I think it is, for it's just joined Paul Nichols. There's varying views I'm getting from people about that one. It's interesting enough, but there just isn't anything in here at any price that tempts me for a Triumph this far out. I'd rather wait until the season starts to kick off. But it's a race where you want to get a few in there. I think the year that Peace and Co won it, was it Peace and Co? Was it no Martello? Yeah, Martello Tower won the Outbar. Peace and Co won. I think I had 5 bets Antepost in the Outbar, and I got the first 5 home. No, the Triumph, sorry, and I got the first 5 home. Now, again, that should me. I'm not. That isn't just saying that for an ego boost. I'm just saying that you can get yourself well covered in certain races. You can see that it's 25-1 bar for the Triumph now. We're not talking an Arkle where it's 3-1. We're not talking about a Marsh where it's 3-1. We're talking 25-1 bar. If you're not backing 4 horses or at least a couple of horses when they're 25-1 plus at the start of the season, you're either missing the boat on these horses or you're not an Antepost punter. So just be mindful with the Triumph that you just feel free to have a few darts. And again, the options of the cash out are magical, but you want to let a lot of them go. The thing is, lots of Triumph winners we won't see until the turn of the year. So think about it this far out is fraught with danger. Albert Bartlett, I mentioned Appreciate It before Supreme, Ballymore, where he might go. I think he's a proper Albert Bartlett type. I love looking for the profile of an Albert Bartlett horse. I appreciate it's like what I would class as like a bit of an old school one for it. I think you want 2 mile speed. I think you want a horse that clearly just gallops, just relentless, and appreciates it. Appreciate it is that for me. The slight worry is his 2 mile speed might be his downfall in the fact that they might stick with the middle trip for too long this season, and then I could see him running a second or third, potentially being outpaced in a Ballymore. They got to go Albert Bartlett, and I have backed him. I think he's got a proper chance. Bob Ollinger again. We don't really 100% know where he's going to go. Esky Lane's an interesting one for Elliott. There's a few in here that are probably interesting, but you'll see with the markets every year, the Supreme, the Ballymore, you get horses that like a lot of horses sub 20-1, and you'll get a handful single figures by the time we've got through to November. When it comes to the Albert Bartlett, even after Fury Road started hacking up in races, you could still get him at like 16s, 20s. A point down the line. So what I'm saying with this is I think Appreciate's the one for an Albert Bartlett, but this is the sort of race you just take your time. Sit back, relax, watch the 3 mile graded form come in, watch the 2.5 milers that need to step up, watch the 2 milers that show pretty decent efforts and then need to step up in trip. You've got plenty of time to get involved here, and again, because we're talking 20, well, this instance it's 20-1 plus, but we take the top 2 out of the market, it's 33-1 bar for an Albert Bartlett. Feel free to just get yourself a little shortlist. Find yourself 4 or 5 horses that you want to get stuck into at big prices. The risk element again can be eliminated by backing with Bet365. If you back a horse at 33s before the race and it flops, it's probably going to be 33s after the race. So you'll just get your 95% back. You might, for every £25 you stick on, you lose £1.25. It's not anything to worry about. because you're getting the option of getting some cover in there. So that's the sort of race, and that's the way to play the Albert Bartlett. 100%, it's the only way to play the Albert Bartlett. Gold Cup, it is the pinnacle, and I love the fact that it is the best race, and it's probably the hardest one to be confident about. I was quite keen on Album Photo last year, the same stands this time round. I do think Santini can only be better than last year, and all the way back when we jumped on the bandwagon with him for the Albert Bartlett after we backed him in the, I think it was the Ballymore trial on trials day when he beat Black Op. Um, I just think that Santini's only going to be better this season, which worries me how close he got to Album Photo. But I think Album Photo is a proper horse, dual Gold Cup winner. There's no reason why he couldn't do it again. For me, Champ is just a bit of an enigma, really. And I couldn't be backing him. And the Gold Cup gets like that for me. I can't really be backing it because I know that there's going to be 5 or 6 in with a chance come the day, and I just don't see the value of trying to get some extra cover because you can't really be backing 4 or 5 in a Gold Cup when we've got the top 3 in the bet in 12 to 1 or lower, or even single figures in some markets. That's where the other races, like your Triumphs, your Albert Bartlett, you want to get some spread. The Gold Cup, you probably want to be looking at one or two, and even in doing that, you'd be worried to back, say, let's Dutch, Album Photo, Santini. I'm saying that I give them both a proper chance. 6s and 7s, it's not really the best value. You're talking sort of 5 to 2ish, aren't you? For 5 to 2, 3 to 1 for your stake, and you wouldn't be that level of confident this far out. I'd say there might be things at bigger prices. I do think Allaho is really, really interesting. We have the RSA, didn't we, the year before? Santini, top of the game, Delta Work. Now, as it transpired, Santini finished best of all of those and was beaten. Now, Allaho, I know maybe didn't necessarily see it out as well as people might have liked him to do, but then Albert Photo wasn't maybe seeing it out. It's going to be a different race. It's going to be different tactics. Going to be a whole different test for him, and it may not be his time next year round, but I think he's probably too big a price at 25s. You just don't know where they're going to go. I think he'll come probably Gold Cup-ish, and then there'll be other ones at biggest prices as well that potentially could lure a few people in, but it's an interesting race. I couldn't put anyone off of whatever they'd fancy in there. I just feel like it never will be for me. I'll never be able to just steam into a horse for the Gold Cup. I just rather see how things go and leave it as it is. So that's pretty much it now. I've gone through the races that are available in here. There's a few handicap horses that, again, in my horses to follow, I've done slightly different this year. I haven't bothered with the point stuff because I'll just peel them out as we go through the season. But I've put a few second season novices in there just because I think we've got a bit of an angle and a bit of a chance with that this season, given that Punchestown, Fairy House and Aintree didn't happen. I'll have a list of horses to follow, just my normal general list, and then there'll be a few sort of afterthoughts, horses that maybe missed the season or ones that are just worth keeping on the radar. Problem is, guys, I could list like probably 400 horses, and that's no good to anybody. I've whittled it down to a point that I've tried to put in horses that probably aren't 100% on your radar, and probably some that would be nowhere near your radar. And the point of me doing that is it's just to maybe let you think slightly differently. And I am an absolute grade snob as it comes through the season, but there are loads of horses I've put in here that I think, for the view of a handicap, the way that I'm looking at them, might pay some benefit as the season goes on. But the writing part of that's almost done. I will do a video with some footage behind because I think it's better to watch. Reiterates the points that I'm making in there. That'll be coming out fairly soon, but this is where I stand sort of anti-post on the festival as it is. Like I say, you can't be overly confident this far out, but when we looked at the picture last year, there was Album Photo for a Gold Cup was mentioned, Paisley Park for a stayers, Benny Dju for a mares. Now I know they didn't win, but they've significantly shortened where they were. Champ for the RSA, Envoy for the Ballymore. Even just talking to those handful of horses, Envoy was 11s, Champ was 7s, Album Photo was 7s. We haven't even got all 28 races. We're not talking handicaps. We're talking 10, 12 races, or maybe a bit more that we're looking at here. And if you're putting out 11s, 7s winners, then you're not far off the mark. There are other bits and pieces that maybe didn't work out as well, but we got some value. Things like Defi Desoy was given a mention at one point with Silas Emery as the champion chasers, how different that could have been. Even Dynamite Dollars at 50s was a lot shorter when it came to the day. Again, it didn't particularly pan out, but There's some horses that this far out you just want to get on your team sheet for the sake of having them on. You obviously don't want to be going too deep, but it's really nice to build the bones of an Antepost book, I think, and then you just flesh it out as the season goes on. Because when you're backing horses this far out at big prices, you don't need very much on. Admittedly, when I'm talking about Shishkin being the second coming, it's difficult because you feel like you want to be putting hefty amounts on just to get the value out of it. I wouldn't be suggesting that. I just feel like when Altior did it from the Supreme to the Arkle, you end up getting a few quid on here and there, a tenner, a £20, all that sort of stuff. Build it up a little bit, then by the time it gets through to Christmas and he's already an even money poke, and you can't really be backing him then, you'll feel better for the fact that you've had a tenner on at 4-1 as opposed to having £25 on at even money nearer Christmas. So, without further ado, I'm going to cut this off now. Thanks for people that have watched this. I'll stick the whole video up on YouTube for guys to catch up on bits that they missed. The season is nearly upon us, guys. As the season goes through, I will tell you all the horses that I fancy as and when they come. We'll do some lives, we'll do some more Q&As. But as always, any feedback's appreciated. Your guys' comments below on the way you've seen things as well is always good to know. I love hearing other people's opinions. If we all work together and talk about things together, it makes us all betters. So I think that's me done. Thank you, guys, and enjoy your Sunday.